fun to put together something, and I get asked these questions all the time of everyone back home anyway. So
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it's really, really cool. I'm so glad it worked out. So thank you.
yeah. And I think it's a really relevant topic. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. So very cool.
yeah, how are you doing?
I'm
Surviving this
well. I'm well. Yeah, it rained last night, so the air is a lot clearer now. So that's a big help. Uh,
Perfect.
what time is it? It must be
It's 6 o'clock, almost 6 o'clock here, so it's not bad.
not bad. Yeah, so
No,
it's 9 hours difference. So that's not bad. Cool.
yeah, Lena made sure that it wasn't super late at night.
Perfect. Perfect.
Hi,
Yeah. We always have to kind of coordinate that. Hey, Lena.
Hi.
Kirsten's here too. I'm in Anacortes.
Hello.
So
I haven't taken a shower. I'm not ready yet.
I guess it's good afternoon, Karen.
Yeah, almost good evening,
Yeah.
right?
go after.
Awesome, yeah. Well, let me make you a co-host now before I forget.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because I was like trying to see if I could test sharing my screen, but
Here we go. And then I'll stop sharing my screen. That should help. Okay.
Good morning, Lena.
Good morning.
Okay. Take care, honey.
Perfect.
Bye. Thanks. Bye.
can you see it now, Lena?
That looks great.
Great.
Mhm.
I already see it.
And I can see it too. So woohoo.
Yeah. I think we should probably wait till about 5 minutes past 9 for us and 6 for you. Yeah, just to make sure everyone can jump on.
Exactly. I just was like, oh, I should make sure the technology works before everyone else is here.
Yeah, we had some issues yesterday too. So with some people that didn't get the
I'm
link.
not sure where the camera is. Just go, Kirsten. So Karen,
Yeah.
how is the sort of the uptick in cases in Denmark impacting your situation?
Yeah. So they just closed, or Meta Fredrickson just had a press conference yesterday, and we were doing restrictions based on like counties that
Right.
had based on their case numbers, but now there's sweeping restrictions across the whole country. And so all restaurants, cafes, bars are closing at 10 now. And
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, so
also now when you go in any food establishment, when you are walking around or ordering, you need to have a face mask on. And then when you're sitting down at your table with your party, you can take it off to eat and drink. So that was a friend
here then, basically.
yeah. And a couple weeks ago, they started masks on public transit. So we hadn't had the mask thing. That's really good, new for Danes. So some of them, most of them have done a good job.
Cool. That's awesome.
There's some teenagers that still refuse, and some elderly people that also think the rules don't apply to them. So, but
yeah, welcome to our world, right?
Yeah, at least it's not politicized here, which is a good thing. So,
and it totally is here, unfortunately.
yeah.
Anyway, all right. Well, I'm gonna step away, but it's really, really nice visiting with you, and thank you again.
Yeah,
for
definitely.
participating. So I will look forward to your talk in a little minute.
Yeah, great.
I'm gonna refill my coffee. I'll be right back, Karen. Do you need anything else from me?
I don't think so. I mean, I hope the videos work, but we'll just, as we get to them, we'll go and like people can let me know in the sound. And I have a slide for questions. So if you can, what we talked about when, like, if we can tell people to write questions, if you can just help me monitor that, or if you see anything else, because I won't really be looking at that during the talk.
Yeah, of course. I'll take care of that. No problem.
Perfect.
Yeah, so because you're gonna do questions like halfway in between, right? And then at the end too.
Yeah, it's probably a little more than halfway, but it's
Okay.
like after, and I will tell you, there's a whole chunk where I use the pictures of the kids, but I can like make sure so that, and we can tell the people about.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Sounds good. Okay, I'll be right back.
Sounds good.
Hello from Astoria.
Hello.
Jen Zeman, I wanted to thank people for helping me get online here. I've got a couple friends coming from the Lower Columbia Danish Society, and I'm really excited about the program. So thank you guys so much for moving things to the virtual world, and it's kind of a crazy time.
Yeah, I was telling Lena too that I think this is great that so many people from all over can join, and maybe that's something that they can integrate in future years too.
Yeah, I think usually we're unable to come because the camp coincides with our Midsummer Festival, and that's our big fundraiser and community event for the year. So I'm excited to try something new, and it looks like great programs. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Which organization are you in, Jen?
I'm with the Lower Columbia Danish Society.
Oh, okay. I've never
So-
heard of that before.
Yeah, we only just got a web presence up in, I think, late 2019 or so, and thank heaven we did, because we've had to go virtual with our meetings for the last 6 months or however long it's been now.
Yeah,
So
that's great.
no, we have a lot of wonderful Nordic communities out here, and in fact, I'm eating some krumkake from my Norwegian friends because I made a kranskaya wedding cake for their daughter.
Oh,
So yeah, it's kind of fun. So
yeah, that's
So
great.
very
Yeah, well,
nice.
welcome.
Hi, Jen. I wanted to say I'm always sad to miss that festival. It's on the same weekend as this. And there's been some really great musicians, and then there's,
oh yeah.
and that's all up my alley. So maybe I'll run between. People have done that.
Oh really? Yeah, I guess you could. It's not that far.
So are
And
you in Astoria, Jen?
Yes, I am.
Okay, yeah, I know. I would love to do that because there used to be a Danish needlework shop in town
Oh, somebody told me
that was right next door to like a restaurant that had Scandinavian food.
Mm-hmm.
Probably both of them are gone now, and I'm just like,
Yeah, we don't have any Scandinavian bakeries anymore. There's one for sale, and we're desperate to find someone who can, do the things that a lot of the lodges used for, holiday celebrations, and
right.
so we miss that. But hopefully, we're trying to recruit a lot of younger, newer members and some enthusiasm for things, and it's really nice to connect with other organizations outside of the area.
Definitely. Well, it's certainly nice to meet you. So I'm really glad you could join us.
Me too. I'll be quiet now because the program's starting soon, I think.
Yeah, I was going to mute myself
Nice to meet
too.
you.
I wanted to say to Jen as well that there's a clearinghouse of information on the Northwest Danish Association site, and to perhaps post the bakery, and it just seems like there could be a Dane around who wants a baking opportunity, and I don't know.
Hello.
I think somebody ought to make a run like they do for Krispy Kreme and bring back a lot of pastries to your group.
Jen wrote in the chat that that's great, fabulous, and she will ask. So just so you know, there's a response she was writing in the chat box. I think we'll just wait a few more minutes to make sure everyone that is trying to log on can get their technology up and working successfully.
So Karen, you're in Denmark now, right?
Yeah, so I moved to Copenhagen just about 2 years now. So
Yeah.
I'm
So it's 6 o'clock and you're,
yes, yeah. So there's still some sunlight out. It's not too much into after off yet, so into fall. So yeah. Lena got me a good time so that I didn't have to stay up past my bedtime to do this talk.
And what, pray tell, is your bedtime?
I mean, as a school teacher, sometimes I fall asleep very early, but usually can make it till 10 o'clock. I told her after 10, I didn't know how coherent I would be. So,
just don't fall asleep in class.
yeah, yeah.
So what area of Copenhagen do you live in?
I live in Osterborg or near Nordhavn Station. So
Okay.
I live right near like Parken where FC Co plays.
Okay.
Did somebody already ask you what grades you teach?
No, they didn't. So I work at a primary school and I actually teach English in all of our classes. So I teach kindergarten through 9th grade.
Okay, so that means you move from class to class?
Correct. So each age group has different hours of teaching. So the little kids only are getting about 1 hour a week. And then the bigger kids get up to 3 lessons or 3 hours a week. So I'm not we have sometimes 2 teachers in a class, especially if there's children that need some support hours. So I'm not always the primary teacher, but we've been able to work since they like to market that they brought an American direct from the USA to help learn American English, not British English.
Oh, I speak Canadian English.
They don't even usually mention that, so I'll have to bring that up too.
Hi, Karen, that was my question. I'm back about 20 years ago. I thought they wanted British English in Denmark. I had a cousin, yeah, they said they discriminated against the.
Yeah, I mean, I get parents and more often it's grandparents that are like, why are you teaching my child American English? But now with media and especially presence of YouTubes and video games, that has really, a lot of children are using it and some of them find it easier to learn American English than British English. And now for the exams in 9th grade, you can choose either one. You need to stay consistent, but you could do your exam in all British English or all American English. So we expose them to both, but they know that, I mean, my British accent is not good and I'm usually teaching them the spelling of American English words. So
No, N-I-T-E? No. Are you? N-I-T-E? Are you? Really? N-I-T-E. Is that how you teach them night?
No, not that bad of slang. So
Okay, fine.
Alrighty, it is 5 minutes past now, so should we get started?
Yeah.
I think we've about 31 people joining us today, it looks like, but people might come in and out, so we'll just go ahead and get started here. I have the pleasure of introducing Karen, and Karen is she's living in Copenhagen right now, but I actually first met Karen when she was living in Seattle, and she came to all of our Northwest Danish Association events before she moved to Denmark to become a teacher. So Karen actually came to the Danish American Cultural Retreat in 2018, I believe it was, right before she moved to Denmark. So and just a few just technical things again. If you could stay muted throughout the whole her whole presentation, that would be great. We will take questions throughout. Just write them in the chat, and then Karen and I will kind of take care of them. I'll ask her the questions just so that everyone's microphones don't get squeaky again. And then we'll do questions again at the end. And if you do want to say something at the very end, feel free to unmute yourselves, and then we can talk. And see how that goes. So yeah, without further ado, here is Karen.
Great. And one just last technical thing that Lena and I will mention as we go. I am using some videos and some photographs of the children at our school. The presentation for the most part will be recorded, but when I do get to the parts where I've used a lot of photos, I just ask that no one takes any personal videos or photos of the screen to protect the children's privacy. So. Let's get started. So this session is called Rare Sites, Reopen Schools and Outdoor Education in Denmark. So as you may have started to hear, I am working at a primary school in the north of Copenhagen. And so I wanted today to share my insight of being a teacher during Corona time and what has education looked like during the lockdown, after the lockdown, and even what do the schools look like today. So I wanted to give first just a little bit of overview of what the kind of Corona timeline looked like in Denmark. So the virus was first confirmed to have spread on February 27th, 2020. That's when we first started hearing some remarks. There were started on the news that people were coming back, especially from ski vacations in Austria and also Italy. And that's where some of the first cases, and then in the first weeks of March is when things really started to spike. And you can see the graph on the PowerPoint. Hopefully everybody can see my screen, where you can see the cases, and at the beginning of March, things started to rise. And that's when the government came in and introduced a lockdown starting on Friday, March 13th on 2020. And we were one of the first European countries to start a lockdown. And so you can also see kind of how it spiked, and the lockdown was able to bring down the cases, and then things were starting to ease and started to go down once we got into the May months. And then this is just a snapshot I took the other day of some Google analytics or Google statistics. As you can see, kind of those similar numbers. There has been, as of the other day, 21,000 total cases. There's been 635 deaths. And kind of gives you a breakdown also on this chart of where some of the cases, of course, in the capital region in Copenhagen, where it's the most densely populated, that's where a lot of the cases have been centered, but we've seen spikes and other outbreaks all over the country. And as you can see in the chart here, unfortunately, we are what it looks like going into our second wave of Corona. There has been in the last days or the last week or so about 300 to 400 cases a day. Some of that, of course, is with more testing that was being readily done, but also that there is kind of a higher rate of infection at the moment. So to give even kind of a more glimpse into what it looked like leading up to the lockdown, schools closing and reopening, this kind of gives you that overview of, at that beginning of March, there were 160 confirmed cases. Then on that March 13th, there were 127 new cases, bringing the total to 800 cases in Denmark. At that time, 23 people were in the hospital and 4 in intensive care. And that is what really triggered the government to say, we need to put a stop. They saw what was happening, especially in Italy. And so they didn't want that to get to that point. So yeah, on March 13th, that's when the lockdown took place, and that's when schools were shut down immediately. So we switched from going into class every day to all of a sudden now we were virtual teachers, which was okay for myself. Some of my colleagues, especially those that have been teaching for many years, our school is a very hands-on and experiential school. It was a very big learning curve for them to start using the computer, and also for us to think of how do we put these lessons that are normally in person, especially with the young children, how do we get them now virtual, and what will that look like? What will it look like for the parents? In the beginning of April, when it seemed like numbers were starting to get more under control, Mette Frederiksen introduced what she was calling the first phase of these different phases for reopening Denmark. At that time, she announced that nurseries and kindergartens, as well as the primary schools, would be open first. It would be just at the primary schools, basically kindergarten or null to class up to 5th grade, that would open, and the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th would stay home and do virtual teaching for another month. So that they could kind of do this phase in and not have all the kids back at once, so that the teachers and the schools could be ready for them. Also at that time, in regards to schools, there was a big debate of what they were going to do with the final exams that usually happen in May and June time, and it was decided that the final exams would be canceled at that time, that those characters or those grades wouldn't be registered for the kids. A lot of them still went and did them for the practice of it, but they weren't getting official grades. Also, even though the schools were going to open, restaurants, cafes, hairdressers were going to remain closed until May 10th, and larger gatherings, like more than, at that time, I think we were allowed to have gatherings of about 10 people, and it was going up to about 50, but more than that wasn't going to be allowed at one space. And as you can imagine, there was definitely concern from teachers, but also parents when this announcement. Many parents were worried that their children were going to be used as guinea pigs in going back. No one knew what school would look like, and why were we going to expose these small children to this? But we moved forward, and it was thought, that there wasn't necessarily evidence that children were at a high risk, where there wasn't the evidence at that time that they were going to be major carriers. Also, there was a big push because of the economy, a way to how are we going to reopen the economy? How, even with the parents at home, how are they going to successfully work from home when they have small children that they have to facilitate learning with? So that was the real push. And also at these press conferences that were happening and being aired on TV, they were making a plan in May for more contact tracing. They created a new government agency that was going to be under the Ministry of Justice that would handle these affairs. So specifically really targeting and really finding a way that they could tackle and keep coronavirus under control. This is just an example of some of the signage that you'll see. These signs this is the one that's translated into English. There are also signs that are all in Danish all around. We have these up all around our school. You'll see these on trains, in shops, everywhere, of kind of just reminding to wash hands, to cover your mouth. Now that face masks have been introduced a little bit more, there's those with those guidelines, but you'll see most of the signs are in Danish or English all around the city, and even in the smaller towns, to remind people to watch out for each other and to take care of each other. Testing. So just a small bit on testing. I've been tested 3 times now. One from traveling. I traveled back to the US over summer break to visit my family in Portland. And so I tested when I came back. There were free tests at the airport that I could take. And then also I participated in the Black Lives Matter protest in Copenhagen in June. And so they made an announcement after that they recommended everyone that had been part of that to get tested, because they realized that there were a few people that had been infected. But it's fairly easy here. There's a coronaprover.dk or coronatest.dk. And you go online, you use your NemID, which is kind of like your social security or login card, and then you can go sign up for a test there. Usually you can get one in the area within 24 hours, if not sooner. Go down, we're using the throat swab test now. So you go in, and then usually within 24 to 72 hours, you can get your results back on your health account webpage. And if you do test positive, they will call you. So they take your phone number down so that you know as soon as possible. You don't have to wait or continuously log in. with reopening schools, I think something besides the economy that was important also, Denmark's participation in the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child was a big push. There's big focus here on the kind of the good childhood, but also the kind of promise that all children receive a quality, good education in Denmark. And that was a big push to get children back into school. Lena had sent out an article, maybe some of you have read it, that was connected to the Facebook event or on the Facebook page. And this was a quote taken from there that to kind of understand the central government was the one making the guidelines for how we were going to reopen. And then those guidelines were then used by the municipal councils, or kind of similar to school districts, to develop their own plans. And then the school leaders and the teachers could do the same. So for example, we were given these guidelines. My colleagues and I returned to school about 5 days before the kids came back, because we needed to make sure we could move things around at school, like the desk, that we could sanitize, that we were ready for when the kids and parents came back. But we were allowed to decide what day we felt ready, and that we had met all those guidelines. There was one kind of caveat or thing that was said by the government. They were announcing that although schools were reopening, that they weren't guaranteeing that they'd receive education in all the subjects. So for example, there wasn't going to necessarily be the 9 hours of Danish a week or 3 hours of math, or maybe some wouldn't have their English class because the teachers had to spread out. And we needed to more so just get the kids at school and being safe before we could guarantee that we were meeting certain standards that were normally in place. And then this is just some facts about children and COVID-19. If you can read Danish, you can read it better. My Danish is not so good, but I'm working on it still. I speak primarily English/Danglish with the Danish/English with the kids at school, and I have been taking classes. But just to give you an overview, about 5,700 children have been tested. I cannot remember when this exactly was taken from, but fairly recently. I grabbed this off the internet. And then 175 of them have been tested positive for coronavirus. And so that's about 2.6% of the children's population that have been tested. And so that kind of gives you an overview that it's not, at least from what they can see, that children weren't getting infected a lot, and they didn't have any evidence. They still, we're still learning day by day what this virus is like, but that was a big push because they didn't think that children were a high risk to be infected or to come down very sick or ill with the virus. And so they thought it would be okay for them to gather at school. Now to tell you about Kentucky School, where I work. So here's a picture of it. It is a big yellow house in the forest up in Hillerød, or the northern part of Zealand. It takes me about 45 minutes from Copenhagen on the train and bus to get out to where we are exactly. And so our school serves children from kindergarten or Nulde class all the way up through 9th grade. We have approximately 200 children in the school. This was a school that was started by parents. It's a free school, or similar to the Lille School or little schools, that kind of pedagogical thought, if you know any of that. We have a very close homeschool collaboration, so we work really closely with the parents. Actually, this morning was just at a working day where the parents come on a Saturday and help us clean and build stuff at the school to contribute. And we have lots of parent meetings, not just like one-on-one conferences. There's annual 4 to 6 parent meetings where the parents all gather and meet with the teacher throughout the year. We are in the middle of nature. We're right up to one of the biggest forests on Zealand, so that is a great part of it. We have an after school program. We have a lot of kind of leisure activities. We're very much a hands-on school. There's, you'll see kids doing all sorts of things throughout the day. There's not just teachers standing in front of the classroom and having that kind of learning. There's a lot of interaction at our school also between the big and the small children. So we have friend groups. So basically every other grade is a friend with the little one. So for example, the kindergartners get their first big friend when they arrived, and that friend is in 2nd grade. And because that friend then had a friend who's now in 4th grade and 6th grade and 8th grade and so on, we have these big friend groups or these lineage of friends. And we do actually a lot of school activities. We have 2 times a year where we do activities purely based in these friend groups, because we like that cross collaboration. We like that the older kids can show something to the younger. Also, it builds a lot of community at our school. This is a private school, and so you'll see at the bottom of the screen, I did list that there is a monthly tuition that the children and the families pay in order to go here. So it is, although it's called a free school, it's not free of tuition. It's more free in the pedagogical thought and teaching in that sense. So that does make a little different than some of the public schools. And I'm going to be speaking specifically about my experiences at Kentucky. That's not going to be able to translate to all different schools in Denmark, but I hope that helps to continue to give a glimpse of what it was like. And once upon a time, so just real quickly, I can read you this little story about how Kentucky started to give you a history of what it was like. So once upon a time, there was once 8 parent couples to 8 children in Hillerød who in the winter of 1996 decided that they would make a new school, which was not a small school, but a small school. Their wish was to make a small school with all the good principles from the little school, but with slightly firmer structure and with the opportunity to take the final exam after 9th grade. The school should be based on democratic and modern progressive pedagogical ideas. And there should be a red thread through everything the school did structurally. The school's goal should be a one-track school from 0 to 9th grade, with a maximum of 18 students in the class, basically 180 children, and approximately 20 adults who had to take care of the children all day, both in teaching and in the SFO or after school program in the afternoon. In other words, all adults should divide their time between teacher and leisure activities. And this still, Kentucky celebrated our 23rd birthday this year, and so it's still to this day very similar. Only difference, we have about 20 students in each grade now, so the numbers are a little bit bigger, and therefore we have about 22 teachers on staff to serve all the students. So now to get to the good stuff, and this is where I'm going to ask Lena to stop the recording, is that I'm going to show you how did Kentucky reopen after lockdown and what did the teaching look like.
So let's see here. So we have school philosophy. The next question is from Ginny. She asked if the straws were plastic. That was when the art was being made.
Actually, they were not. I had a really hard time finding plastic straws because most plastic straws have been removed from the grocery stores and other things. I think we can order them on like our arts website. The kids actually hated that they weren't plastic straws because it was really hard to do that blowing activity with their like motor skills and other things. I had a reusable straw from a Starbucks cup I had brought, and I was using that, and they were like, no fair, yours is so much better. So I can't remember exactly if there might have been some that were plastic that I found that were in our arts and crafts room from before, but most shops here in Copenhagen are only selling paper straws.
Yeah, I think the environment was part of that question.
Yeah.
Because Denmark is so green, so. And then the next question is from David. During the pre-COVID times, was there a requirement for parent volunteer hours at the school?
There's no requirement for parent volunteers, but we do have a pretty active parent group. So they are the ones that run that parent meeting. We have 2 working days a year where the parents come and the families come and help and work, and that is kind of a requirement. As well as we have 1 day a year where the teachers go on kind of a teacher planning retreat. And on that day, there's still 1 day where the school runs, and we have parent volunteers that run that class. So whether they come in and teach something that there is their specialty, or also if they take them on a trip to a museum or something else that day. So not specific volunteer hours, but parents are really involved. And usually during morning song, parents always come and they spend that time with their child. Usually the ones of some of our younger kids, I would say 3rd grade and below. It's something that the parents, we haven't been able to open up morning song now to parents because we still have caps on how many people can gather. And it's one thing that the parents keep asking, can we come to morning song yet? Can we come in the school yet? And unfortunately, that's not the case.
That sounds really fun with the parent involvement. That's very cool. This is from Pamela. Is your school exclusive? Are there mixed cultures? Are there scholarships? So 3-pronged question.
Yeah, so we wish we were more diverse than we are. I think just the one, of course, when it started from parent groups, it was kind of word of mouth, and you can see in certain neighborhoods and you see people that are neighbors that kind of recruit each other. Unfortunately, there is not that much diversity. I would say there has been some efforts to try and diversify the school more. We have 1 student of color, and she happens to be adopted to a Danish family. And we've tried, there is a bigger Turkish population in the town where the school is, and they have tried to recruit more, but they've had some problems getting the families to leave the public schools that are free of education and quality education as well, to move them to more of an alternative school. There is scholarship opportunities, and even my boss will address this in the interview. So if families had any problem paying the tuition after the Corona times, the government and the school could help support the families in order to pay that tuition. So there is even, I'm pretty sure, the government assistance for tuition. I don't think we internally have necessarily the scholarship, but I believe the communa can help families out, or the township.
I think that Ginny is asking if the page of the CRC could be shown again. She'd like to take a picture of the screen.
Yeah, definitely.
Let me stop recording.
And I can, Lena, I can send the link too for this website and other things. I think the picture came from someone's Twitter post, but if you Google the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, you should be able to find out more information and maybe get the answer to the question of why the US is not part of that.
Yeah, great. You have a lot of fun comments in here too, so I'll send you the chat so you can read them. They're not actually questions, but this is from Pamela. How do the kids do when they enter their new school after 9th grade?
After 9th grade, the children can go on many different tracks. And so there's some children will go to after school, which is basically 1 year of boarding school that the children, and it's becoming more and more popular for children to do that after 9th grade, essentially take their 10th grade year at a boarding school. Sometimes they address a lot of different interests, or sometimes they're specific for like drama or other sports specialties that the kids want to focus on. Other kids will go directly to gymnasium, which is like high school, and they jump into that, and there's like bigger schools there. And then the other option is more like a trade school, where if you're going to go become a carpenter or something, you go through that. Maybe someone else who's more well-versed and went through those systems can speak more of that. But to answer more, how do the kids do? We see actually, even though they're used to a smaller school, and yes, sometimes then jumping into a bigger setting or eventually in university, it can be a little overwhelming at first, but actually we feel that a lot of our students gain a lot of self-confidence from the more individual teaching. Also just the confidence that we try and instill in them socially, whether it's performing or standing up. If, for example, every child, if they have something to say at morning song, needs to stand up and address everyone. So we really try and focus on fostering their confidence, and I think that helps them be successful after they're finished at Kentucky.
There's a comment here from Ingrid. As a parent of a school ager, I'm completely jealous. Small school, outdoor education, foreign language competency, playtime. Here in Kirkland, Washington, the kids are shuffled into huge groups, class after class, as if they are college students, locked down in buildings, and of course now at home on laptops for the foreseeable future. Any chance I can move my kids there?
Yes, come. No, my school leader was like, oh, you're putting Kentucky on the map. I mean, I'll make one side comment. So I studied in my bachelor's and master's. I studied education and sociology. I thought I wanted to be a school teacher in the US, but when I took some more sociology classes and other things in my studies in Los Angeles, I was a little, and did field hours, I was a little discouraged. It was at the time of No Child Left Behind, which I really wasn't behind. And so I decided to actually go into working at universities in higher education administration. I was a study abroad advisor, and that kept kind of my international spirit alive. And so I actually don't have credentials to teach in the US, but I got connected to Kentucky because I studied abroad in Denmark in 2006, and I lived with a host family, and my host brothers went to Kentucky. And so that's how I met our school leader and some of the teachers that are still there. And so I say, if I go back to the US, I don't know if I could ever be a teacher in the US. I commend all my friends and those of you that out there. I think it's a really challenging job, and you don't get the same support and freedoms that Denmark gets. And so, yes, everyone's more than welcome to come visit. Kentucky's very open to visitors. So if you are ever in the area and you want to stop by, you're more than welcome to come see our school firsthand.
Yeah, maybe after the COVID times.
Yeah, you can come walk around the building now. We just won't let you inside. So.
Yeah. Great. There's a few more questions that have come in here. This is from Lisa. Once students complete the last grade at your school, what do they usually do next? Do they go on to a more mainstreamed higher grade school situation?
Yeah, so like I had mentioned before, there's kind of 3 different tracks. I would say a majority, there's a big population now that goes to that 1 year of after school that we're seeing. And that's it's also a way, I think it's a great idea, 10th grade, where before they kind of figure out, oh, do I want to do my studies or my next studies more focused in, languages or business or math, or do I want to do more of a trade like carpentry or plumbing? They have a year to kind of figure themselves out, and, they can gain a lot of independence. My host brothers both did it, and especially the younger one. He was struggling a little bit in 8th and 9th grade, but it has helped him blossom to have that year kind of on his own to get some more clarity about what direction. I would say a lot of them also go to gymnasium. So we see a lot that go straight to gymnasium, which is like high school.
And it's great they're supported later too, no matter what field they decide to go in. So
yeah.
This is from Preben. General level of English compared to gal interviewed. I'm not sure what that question is.
Oh, Louisa. She is definitely one of my stronger students, hence why I could grab her yesterday and do that short video. But I would say she's a stronger one of 8th grade, but her and some of her classmates gave a presentation in English about they go and visit Liverpool in 8th grade before Corona time. And so they do research projects, and I told them I was so blown away by their level of English. I think now we see more and more kids that, especially conversationally, are really strong in their English. They will tell you it's YouTube, or I give credit to Fortnite because they're playing online with other gamers that are speaking English. So they're using those English skills. So she's stronger, but I would say, that for an 8th grader, most of them can have a pretty solid conversation with me. She's definitely a little bit more articulate. They start English lessons in kindergarten. So they have 1 hour of English a week in kindergarten. And so I think you can see also, I think a little thing that some of the kids in Louisa's class will say, I volunteered at Kentucky for 2 months back in, now I'm forgetting the years, but back when they were in 4th grade, they're in 8th grade now. And so they say it helped them a lot. I was thrown in their class, and they had basically immersion teaching with this crazy American girl that showed up. And so I didn't speak barely any Danish. I knew a few words, and so I couldn't translate for them. So then people like Louisa, who are a little stronger, had to translate for their friends. And so I think that immersion teaching also has made them more confident. Some of the other kids that are shy, knowing that they can speak to me and that I don't know Danish, I still try and tell them I don't know Danish, even though I'm learning more, to force them to speak English with me at school.
That's great. It sounds like having you has been a big help.
Yeah, hopefully. Some bad influences from America, but mostly good.
You taught them how to make s'mores too, I saw.
Yeah, even though they don't have proper graham crackers. And they're like, we have cakes, don't worry. I was like, that's not a graham cracker, but one day I'll smuggle them in.
Yeah. Let's see here. Did anyone get COVID? This is from Bodil Jensen. Did anyone get COVID after the school reopened?
Yeah, great question. I forgot to mention that. We had one of our kindergartners test positive for COVID, and his unique situation was that no one else in his family tested positive, and some of his friends that he played with in the sandbox a lot, them and their families got tested, and no one else showed positive. So from April to our school closed at the end of June, we go to the end of June, we only had one student. We had maybe a parent or two, so a distant contact, but that we only had one child. And now we just recently had our second student test positive. So I actually had to go through all this. I told Lena it was perfect timing that I could share this experience with you. So she's in 8th grade. Her mom tested positive, had kind of a fever and other things, and that's how she knew to go get tested. And then the student herself was pulled that next day. She got tested, and then 2 days later, we found out that she also was positive, although she was asymptomatic. So she has shown no symptoms this whole time. At that time, it was the decision then, we went into kind of emergency mode. It was decided that 7th, 8th, and 9th graders would be kept home Monday through Friday of this past week, as well as any teachers that had interactions with that class. They were going to then do remote learning, so we moved it all online. It was definitely easier because it's the older kids. And then children, all the teachers were tested, and then children, they weren't forced to be tested. We definitely encouraged, especially ones in her class and that were in close contact. Also, coincidentally, this is a time a lot of people who had postponed parties like confirmations for the kids, which was this class, 7th grade gets confirmed, and then these were 8th graders now. They all had mingled, so their parents had mingled even with her mother or other things outside of school. But we've gotten the results, and she was the only one so far that has tested positive. So we're thankful for that, but we're also prepared that this was not going to be the end of spikes or students getting contracting corona, whether it is, I mean, I said to my colleagues, you know, I'm thankful that her mom actually showed symptoms, because otherwise I don't think we would have ever known she wasn't showing any symptoms. We wouldn't have known that she was positive, and that maybe we needed to isolate students and send them home. And we're going to do that on a class by class basis. I mean, of course, if the infection spread more, we will have to do that more. But it was a good wake up call also to up our cleaning and hand washing and other things. Again, I think as Denmark, you see in some of the news, people were getting a little relaxed that Denmark had things very much under control. And we just have to know that Corona is not gone, unfortunately. I'm gonna real quick turn on a light because it's getting dark, and I realize that my screen is getting a little dark. Okay.
So there are a few more questions, but I know you had a little bit left in your presentation, and we only have about 15 minutes left. So let's go ahead and finish that, and then we can take some more questions at the end. And if there's additional questions, maybe we can send them to you. Is that okay?
Yeah, perfect. So the one thing I definitely want to show, I was able to interview our school leader, and this is about, I think, about 10 minutes or so that you can listen to. I asked her specific questions relating to this topic so that she can share as a head administrator and as the one that was responsible for kind of guiding and steering us what it looked like. Oops. Hold on. I will start it over. Let me get the volume, and hopefully you can turn the volume up. You'll see, I apologize in advance. We did this over Zoom, and so when you hear me talk, I am going to be a bit louder than my principal, but hopefully you can turn it up so she does most of the talking. Sorry, clicking all these things and it never clicks the right way. There we go.
My first thought was, yes, I thought, wow, we have to stay at home all day long, and we have to teach and computers. I thought, wow, how can we change the school day to something nice or something playful or something family-like, now just science or tests or yeah, like that. So yeah, my first thought was for the kids. Yeah, and then yeah, the next concern was of course to the teachers that are not so into the technicalities about teaching parents too more. I thought, wow,
it's gonna be a struggle.
Yeah, a big what do you call a task for them to. Yeah, they have to do what do you call it? We call it a style index. You have to
learn
very quickly.
Yeah, the learning curve.
Yeah, for a lot of the teachers, and it did go like this, right?
Yeah.
So that was my first thoughts. I was happy again for the kids, because I thought the kids could be together and they could play at the ground, and it was springtime and probably good weather and something like that. And at that point, I knew that all the teachers could do playful teaching, exercise, storytelling, nature camp wise thing.
Yeah.
I just knew that wouldn't be a problem.
I think for Contiki it might be maybe a little bit easier with the emphasis on how we do things and how we use the outdoors a lot more in our everyday lessons.
Yeah, because it's so close by. I think lots
Yeah.
of the other schools have had big problems because they have to move the kids to bigger areas, or and they couldn't travel with buses, so all that. We could just go out, and yeah, and it was very obvious that all the teachers could do that. Also, the teachers for the big ones was they were good at change the schedules and do all the stuff. So yeah, I think it went quite well.
Yeah. This is also on YouTube. I can share.
One of the benefits was that it was what we call it in English, when we can connect several subjects.
Oh yeah, multidisciplinary.
Yeah. And it was obvious that it came very natural for all the teachers to say, how can we combine nature science with storytelling, or how can we combine culture or science, or it was very combined, and that was very good. Also, the other benefits was that you could take a whole day only nature science. None of the teachers thought, oh, we have to have math, we have to have nature science, we have to have English. It was, we can do all day, and the kids could have this flow of doing the same, of course, with several different tasks or assignments, but still this flow of being in going into the depth of the subject is one of the benefits, I think.
Was there challenges with logistics or getting the right cleaning or cleaning up to par with the government or teacher standards?
Yeah, we couldn't have done it unless the teachers were helping with cleaning and the kids were helping with cleaning. We couldn't have done it. Not for the money, but for the time.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't. Our cleaning people couldn't get into the building 2 or 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Because they were assigned to other tasks. So not because of the money, but because of the logistic and the time schedule and the amount of time we have to use on it. So that was very helpful. So we could continue with a high level of cleaning.
Did you receive any money from the government, or is that only for public schools?
No, we got an amount of money for cleaning. So because we used more money for the cleaning, and it was good because we don't have to any form of documentary. We have to just how many squares we get for the school, and we get a certain amount of money for that.
Yeah, great.
So that covered the extra cost of cleaning.
Yeah.
And then some of the parents got this subsidized of the school money. If they could tell how come if they have less jobs and less salary.
Yeah, financial struggles.
And we also got financed. For example, the
janitors.
Yes, because he couldn't work, we could have money for his sickness.
Yeah, so at-risk staff.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I think it will be like we just have this week, that we will have peaks or attacks, and then we have to close parts of the school down. I think it will be like that, but of course I don't know, but I think it will be like this, and it will be a challenge, because then, as you know, we had to send them home 5, 6, 7 teachers.
Yeah.
And wait for the test results. So it will be the challenge to do the teaching for the rest of the school if we have to do this several times, I think.
Yeah.
And the other challenge will be, like we heard yesterday at the parents' meeting, that for the smaller kids to teach them in Zoom or Teams or whatever, because they're too small to do it. They can't cope with it, especially if the parents are not at home.
Yeah.
That will be a challenge. And I think we have to rethink some of the teaching assignments where they can do it more by themselves or
or in groups.
Groups without our participation in it, or we can meet up somewhere in a park and tell them what to do, or something like that.
Yeah.
I think we have to rethink that for the smaller kids.
Yeah.
I hope not, because our school is so vocal. Yeah. So, as you know, you tried it yesterday.
Yeah.
The parents' meeting. It's very hard to see how your face is doing, and it's hard to read my lips.
Yeah.
It's hard to see how emotional it is for both kids and teachers, and it's very hard to hear in a classroom. And I hope not.
Yes.
First of all, keep the panic down. We have the saying, keep your head cool and your heart warm.
Yeah.
So to keep the panic down, and then think with your heart, think what's best for the kids.
Yeah.
I think that's the most important things, because you can be run over by rules or governments, this and that, or panic parents or whatever. So if you can keep in mind what the best situation is for the kids, I think that's the best advice I can give.
Perfect.
And then I think again to relax on all the the quality questions or quantitative questions, instead of thinking, oh, do they read the goals and this and that subjects, and then rather think how you can combine things so the kids can do it at home and can read the red line in between the subjects and can work so it makes some sense for them.
Yeah. Not so concerned about how many hours of this or that, or do they pass a test or not, but overall what they're taking away from it.
Yeah. The life teaching, or what you call it. And if they have to work by themselves, that it makes sense for them.
Yeah.
And for parents, I will say, try to think about all the assignments you have in your home, how you can do teaching out of that. How can we cook? How can we clean our garden? How can we paint? How can we do something that you have to do in your home, and then make teaching out of that instead?
Yeah. Because
I think every parent can do something about that, because they do it every week. Cleaning, cooking, painting, whatever they do.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully there was some inspiration. I really liked what our school leader was giving advice. I know people are in very different stages of, depending on where in the US or the world you are, of where kids are able to go back to school, or whether it's virtual, or do they have a date that they're going back, and I don't think we'll know, and we have to be ready for different changes. So, but also embracing the learning that can happen at home and what you can do with your own children, that there's a lot of life lessons too, even if it's not being facilitated necessarily in the walls of a school. So, and then just one last clip, I know we're ending here, this is just a short preview. So we are back at school now. Louisa mentioned we're back at normal, not really normal. We still have regulations we follow, but we're able to do some morning song. Actually, after this week, the outbreak with the older kids, we've decided to split morning song into 2 groups, so they're less children all in one room. You will see a few parents. That is because our NOLDA class, our kindergartners, we have let their parents in. They're the only ones that are allowed to come into morning song because we know that some of those kids would have a really hard time. This is their first time going to school in a new place. And so we made it a rule that they were allowed to come in just for the about 15, 20 minutes of morning song. So here's just, the other day we were singing actually a song in English. Most songs are in Danish, but a nice surprise, a song in English from one of the Eurovision songs. So here it is. Oh, let's see if I can get it to turn on. So that, or normal morning song is us, before Corona was us all clumped together and mixed between classes. Now we have the classes sit specifically with their class and in rows or somewhat rows. You can see NOLDA class in the front. Doesn't really make a row that much anymore. But it's really important for us to start the day with songs. So we have found a way to come back together and still keep everyone safe and follow those guidelines. And then, yeah, so I just hope this can be inspiration, maybe getting ideas of some of the things we did or what's happening in Denmark. I know we can't always cut and paste what happens in Denmark back in the US, but hopefully we will all stay persistent and we will all get through this and hopefully find those silver linings like Louisa was doing from these situations. So if there's any more questions, I am happy to take them now if we have a few minutes before we have to turn over. Otherwise, Lena can send them to me and I'd be more than happy to connect with you or email you answers for them.
Thank you so much, Karen. That was awesome. That was a really good presentation.
My pleasure. It's easy to talk about because it's what I've been living. So
yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to share that with us. We are out of time, so I will just send all of the questions to you if you don't mind just answering them in a document. I'll send that to you later today. Yeah, there's lots of comments here, so I'll just send them to you in the saved chat. And if anyone's interested in the outdoor forest kindergartens, there is a video in the program too at 4:15 that you can click in on if you're interested in learning more about that. So yeah, but yeah, I'll let you go, Karen, and everyone will see you all at 11. And again, tusind tak. If anyone has any last minute comments for Karen right now, you're welcome to unmute yourself and say what you'd like.
I can hang out for a few minutes too
if
people want to say anything or ask any last thing. So thank you all. I wish we could interact more. The Zoom is a little silly and you can't really engage with people as much, but I hope in the future we also can cross paths. My parents do live in Portland, so I do make it back to the Northwest quite often. Well, pre-corona.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want me to maybe stop sharing my screen, Lena, so you can put the program back up?
You can leave it up for now if you. No, that's fine. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. I'll do that in a minute. So if anybody else has any last minute comments, I'll let them give everyone a minute. Did you finally get the results from your COVID test too?
Yeah, so they came back inconclusive, which technically means that I would need to take another test, so they couldn't tell 100% sure if it was positive or negative. I talked to someone who works at a university in the US in the health center, and she's like, all our students that had that, if they can't get a clean swab, and so, but my boss decided, since I had quarantined the same amount of time, my boyfriend got tested, he was negative as well. So I did go back to school. But as she was mentioning, I went back for a teacher meeting and a parent meeting before I knew my results. And I was wearing that face mask that I had posted on social media because I told the parents I wanted just to be sure. But it was so hard to give a talk with wearing that on. You know, I was used to having it on for a long time from the flight to the US, as you probably experienced. But yeah, I commend the teachers and students that are back at school wearing masks all day long. I do not know how you do it, but I don't think Denmark is ready to embrace that.
Yeah, it didn't sound like it in the video.
Hi, I was talking to one of the teachers in Minnesota. I'm from Minnesota, the other day, and she's been doing virtual teaching.
Yeah.
And so I figured, in my mind, the kids, you know, they're going to really want to learn and everything. But she caught them misbehaving by using the chat in Zoom all the time.
Yeah. When we were on Zoom, especially I can remember the fourth graders, now fifth graders, you know, they would find toys in their house. And luckily you can mute people, but then we also would tell them that we would shut off their video if they weren't, because they would purposely find things to try and distract each other. You could tell while someone was teaching, they'd be like doing weird code words or spinning around in their chair. So it also happens in Denmark.
Yeah, children can find a way.
Yeah, and of course, I think it's for us too, it was hard to sit in front of a computer for that long during the day. So that's also what we had to think about, is how do we keep them engaged in a screen, but also give them breaks so it's not they are not used to at all sitting in front of a screen for that long. Maybe playing a video game, but that's not even that.
I know that the adults and children meet misconnecting with people.
Yeah.
Human to human rather than, through Zoom. And I know my little granddaughter, she's 4 and she misses preschool. I miss my friends. I miss preschool. And her mom says, I miss preschool too.
Yeah, that's where we could tell a lot of the parents were very excited when we were opening up. And I think I had a new appreciation for us teachers after they had their children home for 2-3 weeks by themselves. But yeah, I think what you pinpointed is us making sure there was a big focus on just getting the kids back. The little ones, we had a lot of playtime because they just wanted to be around people again. And we just, wanted them to embrace being a kid during this pandemic and, the things that were being taken away from them now because of the regulations. And although the ministry set up regulations of, teachers should stay 2 meters from the kids at all time, I can tell you I broke that rule within the first 24 hours as I had a little first grader who fell and was crying, and I wasn't going to stand 2 meters away and be like, are you okay? Do you need a Band-Aid? So, you gave them, my colleagues each had their personal preference about giving hugs or other things. And that was, I think parents appreciated that too, of just.
So there isn't any masking going on or shields?
There is on public transport, not in the schools right now.
Okay.
One of my colleagues that she was a little more concerned, she was wearing a face mask for a while, but we don't have any regulations in schools. If we go on a trip with the kids, any child that's 12 or older on any of the public transport needs to wear a mask, and now within restaurants. So a little different, but as I had mentioned, Denmark is a little bit on the later end of the face mask train. They kept it pretty strong for the first part, that face masks were not being recommended or not that they weren't, but there was no kind of recommendations or guidelines for them. But now they realize some of the importance.
All right, are there any more comments or anything, or else maybe we'll let Karen go and get ready for the next presenter, Bill, who has just joined us, I see.
Perfect.
Good morning.
Yeah, thank you so much, Karen. That was wonderful. And I'll send you an email with all the questions and chats and all that.
Great. And good luck, Bill, with your presentation.
Karen, thank you. I'm looking forward to watching the recording of what I've missed. Cheers.
Yeah. Take care.
Thank you. All right, I will be back, but see you all at 11.